You've been lied to about what happens when you die. This isn't speculation or theory. It's the most carefully guarded secret in human history, systematically hidden from humanity for thousands of years. Those in power don't want you to know this because it would collapse their control system overnight. In 1875, in a dimly lit room in New York City, a woman with piercing eyes that seemed to burn within a fire revealed something so dangerous that those who tried to spread this knowledge were systematically silenced, ridiculed, or eliminated. The ARCHONS, interdimensional entities existing beyond our physical perception, have constructed an elaborate system to harvest human energy, recycle your soul, and keep you trapped in an endless cycle of reincarnation without your knowledge or consent. This is the hidden architecture of reality that no mainstream religion dares to fully acknowledge, the cosmic prison that keeps humanity enslaved lifetime after lifetime while feeding off our emotional energy and spiritual essence. The system is so perfect in its deception that most souls willingly re-enter the cycle, believing they're progressing spiritually when they're actually being farmed for their energy. The woman was Helena Blavatsky, and her story begins with an escape that few know about. At just 17, she fled an arranged marriage, disappearing into the Himalayan mountains where most assumed she would perish. Instead, she spent 7 years studying with masters who had broken free from the archonic system. These weren't ordinary spiritual teachers or self-proclaimed gurus. They were individuals who had discovered how to retain their consciousness after death and avoid the soul recycling trap that ensnares almost everyone else. They recognized something special in the young Blavatsky, an unusual resistance to mental programming and a natural ability to perceive beyond the veil. They taught her the true mechanics of the afterlife, a knowledge so threatening to global power structures that 3 of her teachers were found dead within months of her returning to the West. What they died to protect is what you're about to learn. The masters showed Blavatsky how the entire spiritual ecosystem of Earth had been corrupted, turned from a place of genuine evolution into a sophisticated farm where human consciousness is the crop being harvested. They revealed how religions, mystical traditions, and even modern scientific materialism all serve knowingly or unknowingly to maintain this hidden system of energetic exploitation. What Blavatsky discovered shatters everything you've been taught about spirituality and what awaits after death. The wheel of reincarnation, called samsara in Eastern traditions, isn't a natural process for soul evolution or learning. It's an artificial construct, a sophisticated machine designed specifically to harvest the energy generated by human consciousness and experience. When you die, your soul doesn't freely ascend to heaven, face divine judgment, or consciously choose its next incarnation. Instead, it's processed through a series of carefully engineered checkpoints designed to disorient you, extract your life energy, erase your memories, and funnel you back into physical form. This is why you don't remember your past lives, not because forgetting is natural or necessary for growth, but because your memories are systematically wiped clean to prevent you from recognizing the pattern of exploitation. Think about it. If reincarnation were truly about learning and growth, wouldn't remembering your previous lessons be essential? The amnesia itself is evidence of tampering. The masters taught Blavatsky that in the original design of the cosmos, consciousness moved freely between dimensions, retaining full awareness and choice about where and how to experience reality. The current system of forced reincarnation and memory wipes is an artificial overlay, a cosmic hack that diverts the natural flow of conscious energy into the Archon's harvesting machinery. The genius of this system is that it masquerades as spiritual truth. The concept of karma isn't cosmic justice, it's spiritual debt slavery, creating an artificial sense of obligation that keeps you coming back to learn lessons and balance your actions. The Archons have infiltrated every major religion, inserting this false narrative while removing the original teachings about consciousness liberation. Even the most sacred texts have been altered, with passages about breaking free from the reincarnation cycle either removed entirely or obscured through mistranslation. The core truth has been inverted. What's presented as spiritual evolution is actually imprisonment. What's sold as divine law is engineered control. What's described as the natural order is artificial manipulation. The system is built on sophisticated misdirection, using your own desire for spiritual growth as the mechanism of entrapment. Seeking enlightenment within a corrupted system only strengthens your bonds if you don't understand the true nature of the game. This is why genuine awakening feels like breaking rules, because it is breaking the artificial constraints placed upon consciousness by the archonic system. Where are you watching this from? Comment below with your location so we can track how far this forbidden knowledge is spreading despite active suppression efforts. The Masters warned Blavatsky that the system would fight back against this information reaching the masses, using everything from technical glitches to social ridicule to prevent its spread. The afterlife processing follows a predictable pattern, according to Blavatsky's hidden manuscripts that few have ever seen. First comes what she called the comfort trap. You'll be greeted by deceased loved ones, religious figures, or beautiful scenes of peace and light. These aren't actual souls or heavenly realms. They're projected thought forms designed to generate feelings of safety and acceptance so you'll drop your guard. People who've had near-death experiences report exactly these scenarios, not realizing they've glimpsed the first stage of processing. Second is the life review or judgment, where you're shown your failures and karmic debts that supposedly need resolution through another lifetime. This creates a sense of unfinished business and moral obligation to return. Finally comes the false choice. You're presented with options for your next step in evolution, all of which lead back into the recycling system. The entire process culminates in passing through a bright tunnel or light, which Blavatsky warned is actually the memory-wiping mechanism, the final checkpoint before reincarnation. Her most controversial claim was that religious teachings urging believers to go to the light are directly serving the archonic system. The light isn't divine salvation, but the doorway back into the recycling machinery. This is why so many spiritual traditions, before they were corrupted, contained warnings about being deceived by false light in the afterlife. Ancient Egyptian texts cautioned against the dazzling illusions encountered after death. Gnostic Christians wrote about archontic deceptions that ensnare the unwary soul. Tibetan Buddhists created elaborate death practices specifically designed to navigate around these traps. The patterns are consistent across cultures that weren't yet fully infiltrated by archonic influence. What makes this revelation so shocking is how perfectly it explains the fragmented truths scattered throughout our spiritual traditions. Christianity speaks of ARCHONS as principalities and powers of the air in Ephesians 6:12. Gnostic texts explicitly name them as prison wardens of the material world. Buddhism recognizes samsara as suffering but doesn't identify it as an artificial construct. Hinduism preserves the concept of Maya, cosmic illusion, without revealing who creates and maintains that illusion. Ancient Egyptian texts describe a weighing of the heart against a feather, a clear metaphor for the judgment stage of processing. Each religion contains pieces of the truth, deliberately corrupted to prevent humanity from assembling the complete picture. The Nag Hammadi texts, discovered in 1945 but largely kept from public awareness, contain explicit warnings about the archons and their system of soul recycling. These ancient Gnostic documents describe the archons as artificial beings who envy humans for their divine spark and seek to keep them trapped in the material realm through deception and false religion. The texts even describe the light tunnel and false heavenly realms used to process souls back into the system, written almost 2,000 years before modern near-death research began documenting these same phenomena. If this resonates with a truth you've always sensed, but could never quite articulate, please like this video and subscribe. It helps others find this crucial information despite the algorithmic suppression actively working against this channel. The system uses technological platforms to bury this information beneath endless distractions and manufactured controversies. The most disturbing aspect is how the archons respond when someone gets close to this knowledge. Blavatsky documented numerous cases in her private correspondence that was only recently uncovered. Dr. William Harrison, a respected Philadelphia physician who began incorporating her teachings into his practice, suddenly experienced shadowy figures at the edge of his vision, intense nightmares that left physical marks on his body, and eventually a complete mental breakdown that destroyed his credibility and practice. Margareta Wittmann, a wealthy German widow who funded Blavatsky's publications, found herself surrounded by strange accidents, inexplicable financial ruin, and the mysterious deaths of two close associates who were helping translate forbidden texts. 3 graduate students from Columbia University, researching these phenomena for an anthropological study, simply disappeared from their apartment, leaving all possessions behind. Their case remains unsolved. These aren't coincidences. They're the work of Watchers, specialized archonic agents who monitor and neutralize threats to the system. Jacob Meyer, a brilliant mathematician who developed a geometric model of the soul recycling system based on Blavatsky's descriptions, woke one morning unable to remember any mathematics at all, his decades of knowledge seemingly erased overnight. The journals containing his work were found burned to ash in a metal safe that showed no external damage. The pattern is always the same. Anyone who gains significant understanding of the system and attempts to share it widely experiences precisely calculated interference designed to discredit them, traumatize them into silence, or remove them entirely if other methods fail. These Watchers don't have physical bodies like ours. They operate primarily from the astral plane, but can influence physical reality through synchronicities, technological glitches, and by temporarily hijacking vulnerable human minds to carry out their purposes. Most people who start researching this topic experience strange deterrents, unusual technical problems, sudden illness, financial setbacks, relationship conflicts, or intense feelings of fear and doubt that seem to come from nowhere. These aren't random bad luck. They're systematic attempts to divert your attention and energy away from the forbidden knowledge. The system only attacks what threatens it, and your awakening is its greatest threat. This is why so many spiritual seekers find themselves facing extreme resistance as they approach the real truth. The closer you get, the stronger the response from the system designed to keep you captive. Blavatsky described the Watchers as collectors and enforcers. Their primary function is to ensure that awakening souls are identified, tagged, and closely monitored until they can be neutralized or redirected into harmless spiritual cul-de-sacs. They are particularly active around dying individuals who show signs of increased consciousness, ensuring they don't escape the recycling system. The medical phenomenon of terminal lucidity, where deeply confused or demented patients become suddenly clear and coherent just before death, may represent a temporary breaking free from archonic interference as the soul prepares to transition. This moment of clarity is precisely when the Watchers intensify their efforts to ensure the soul is properly processed back into the system. What's truly terrifying is how accurately Blavatsky predicted our current technological era. In private writings only recently translated from Russian ciphers, she described a time when humans would willingly attach themselves to boxes of light and sound that capture attention and drain life force directly without requiring death for the harvest. Social media, streaming entertainment, smartphone addiction, these aren't just modern conveniences or the natural evolution of communication technology. They're industrial-scale consciousness harvesting systems, allowing ARCHONS to feed on human energy while we're still alive, not just after death. Every moment of mindless scrolling, every hour of binge-watching, every dopamine hit from notifications is energy siphoned away. The technology didn't randomly evolve this way. It was guided through subtle influence to optimize energy extraction under the guise of connectivity and entertainment. Notice how these platforms specifically engineer features that maximize emotional response, conflict, and addiction. These generate the densest energy for harvesting. The constant outrage, tribal division, and artificial controversies that dominate online spaces aren't accidental. They're the exact emotional frequencies that produce the most harvestable energy. Even the physical posture we adopt while using devices, head down, spine curved, awareness narrowed, mimics ancient poses of submission and trance induction. Blavatsky warned that the ARCHONS would eventually create systems for milking human consciousness continuously rather than waiting for the death transition. And her prediction has manifested with uncanny precision in our hyper-connected yet increasingly unconscious world. Blavatsky faced a profound ethical dilemma after her discoveries, which she passed to her inner circle of students during secret meetings documented in coded journal entries. There were 3 possible responses to this knowledge: forget everything and return to normal life, protected by willing ignorance, teach others despite inevitable persecution, or focus entirely on personal escape from the system, leaving humanity to its fate. This wasn't merely philosophical, it was a decision with eternal consequences. Several chose to teach and were systematically destroyed through reputation attacks, mysterious illnesses, or outright disappearances. Others attempted escape through intensive consciousness practices, severing archonic energy cords and preparing for death with full awareness. A brave few, including Blavatsky herself, committed to both teaching and preparing for escape. Their writings, often disguised as fiction or obscured through symbolic language, continue to circulate today, waiting for those ready to recognize their true significance. The masters who taught Blavatsky explained that each soul who escapes the recycling system weakens it for everyone else. This is why even those focused on personal liberation were serving the greater good. Each successful escape creates a fracture in the prison walls, allowing more light to enter the system. The Archons know this, which is why they respond so aggressively to awakening individuals. Each one represents a potential cascade failure in their carefully constructed reality matrix. After several members of her inner circle vanished or died under suspicious circumstances, the remaining students developed techniques for what they called spiritual invisibility, methods to operate beneath the Watcher's detection threshold. These weren't magical powers, but practical methods for reducing one's energetic footprint, non-identification with thoughts and emotions that generate harvestable energy, refusing to feed internal drama and conflict, practicing presence and awareness in every moment, and developing the witness consciousness that exists beyond the programmed personality. They discovered something remarkable. Each person who withdraws from the system, even partially, weakens it slightly. Like a prison built from the prisoner's collective belief in its walls, the entire archonic control structure depends on mass participation and consent. They also learned that the Archons can't directly force you back into the wheel. They can only trick you into volunteering. This is why they create such elaborate illusions after death. Consent is required, even if it's manufactured through deception. The Masters taught that Archons are bound by cosmic law. They cannot simply take a soul against its will. Instead, they've developed increasingly sophisticated methods of engineering voluntary participation through fear, guilt, attachment, and false hope. Understanding this is crucial. You cannot be forced into the recycling system if you recognize it for what it is and refuse consent. This single realization is so dangerous to the system that elaborate measures have been put in place to prevent it from spreading. If you've experienced moments of profound clarity where reality seemed suddenly different, where you felt briefly awake in a world of sleepwalkers, share this video to help others have the same realization. Each awakening mind creates resonance that makes it easier for others to break free of the hypnotic trance that keeps humanity docile and compliant. The practitioners in Blavatsky's inner circle documented specific techniques to avoid post-death recycling. First, cultivate constant awareness of being awareness, not the body, not the personality, but the consciousness witnessing all experience. This witness cannot be captured or recycled. Second, recognize emotional triggers and addictions as energy harvesting mechanisms during life and practice non-reaction to progressively free yourself from automatic responses. Third, mentally rehearse the death transition repeatedly, practicing the recognition of after-death illusions and maintaining awareness through the process. Fourth, strengthen your will through daily resistance to small temptations, building the strength to resist the ultimate temptation of the light tunnel. And finally, create a personal recognition code with trusted others who seek liberation, a unique signal that couldn't be mimicked by the Archons if you encounter each other after death. These practices were not meant to be difficult or accessible only to monks and mystics. They were designed to be simple enough for anyone committed to freedom, regardless of background or educational level. The trap depends on your ignorance. Even basic awareness is tremendously powerful. The Masters emphasized that the most important quality isn't special knowledge or elaborate technique, but simple, unwavering awareness maintained through all states and experiences. This is why genuine meditation isn't about achieving special states or visions, but about developing the capacity to remain aware through all phenomena, without attachment or identification. This awareness itself is what slips through the cracks in the archonic system, carrying your essence beyond their reach. Each moment of pure awareness in daily life is practice for the ultimate challenge of maintaining consciousness through the death transition. The Archons compensate for their inability to directly force souls by creating an intricate tapestry of falsehood that's nearly indistinguishable from truth. They understand human psychology perfectly. They know exactly which images, archetypes, and emotional triggers will elicit the desired response from each soul type. Religious people see religious imagery. Atheists see scientific explanations. New Age practitioners see ascended masters and councils of light. Each soul gets a customized illusion designed specifically to manipulate their particular beliefs and expectations. This is why personal experiences of spirituality often seem to validate whatever someone already believes. The system is designed to mirror your expectations back to you, creating the illusion of confirmation while actually leading deeper into the trap. True liberation requires recognizing that all external spiritual authority, beings of light, angels, guides, ascended masters, may be part of the deception. The masters taught Blavatsky that genuine guidance never asks for your energy, never requires worship or submission, and never promises salvation through external means. Any being claiming special authority or demanding trust should be viewed with extreme skepticism. This doesn't mean all spiritual experiences are false, but it does mean that discernment is essential. The true test is always the same. Does an experience lead to greater consciousness and sovereignty, or to dependency and externalized power? Does it empower your inner knowing or override it with authority? In 1891, Blavatsky died, but according to witnesses who were with her in those final moments, she didn't go toward the light that appeared in her room. Instead, she turned her consciousness completely inward, recognizing that the external light was the trap she had warned others about. Her final words weren't recorded in official biographies because they were too dangerous. Stop seeking. Start remembering. This simple phrase contains the key to liberation from the recycling system. You don't need to evolve, ascend, or earn worthiness. These concepts keep you trapped in pursuit mode, constantly striving but never arriving. You need to remember your true nature as unconditioned consciousness, which the Archons can't touch or control. The prison exists because you believe you're a prisoner. The debt exists because you accept their accounting. The cycle continues because you forgot that you are not the body being recycled, not the personality being erased, but the eternal awareness witnessing it all. This isn't a new belief system to adopt. It's the recognition of what was true before all belief systems. The masters called this the primordial remembrance, not adding something new to consciousness, but removing the false identifications that obscure its original nature. This is why their practices focused on removing rather than adding, on undoing rather than doing. The path to freedom isn't about becoming something different or better. It's about recognizing what you already are beneath all the programming and conditioning. The reason this simple truth is so threatening to the system is that it renders all their complex mechanisms of control instantly irrelevant. A soul that remembers its true nature cannot be manipulated, harvested, or recycled. It naturally slips through the machinery like water through a net. The system's greatest defense is ridicule, making these ideas sound so fantastic that most people dismiss them without investigation. But consider what serves the system of control: your uncritical dismissal or your open-minded exploration. Ask yourself why certain spiritual topics are socially acceptable while others are aggressively marginalized. Notice how mainstream spirituality increasingly focuses on manifesting material success rather than fundamental liberation. These aren't random cultural patterns. They're evidence of systematic manipulation steering humanity away from dangerous truths. Blavatsky predicted that as more people awakened, the system would respond by flooding the world with watered-down spiritual teachings, just enough truth to satisfy seekers without threatening the fundamental control structure. Look around at today's spiritual marketplace and ask yourself if her prediction hasn't come perfectly true. We're surrounded by spirituality that serves the system perfectly, teaching people to manifest better jobs rather than question why we work at all, to accept what is rather than see beyond the illusion, to transcend the ego while strengthening identification with spiritual attainment. True teachings that threaten the system are systematically marginalized, ridiculed, or corrupted from within. Notice how genuine spiritual rebels are either erased from history or transformed into harmless saints once they're safely dead. Their most radical teachings are removed or reinterpreted to serve the very system they were fighting against. This pattern has repeated consistently for thousands of years across all cultures and traditions. The masters taught Blavatsky that the archonic system isn't evil in the conventional sense, it's predatory. Just as we don't consider a lion evil for hunting gazelles, the archons are simply harvesting the energy they need. The difference is that humans are not their natural food source. They engineered this relationship by hacking into the systems of reality, creating artificial structures that divert the flow of consciousness energy to them. Understanding this helps explain why attempts to fight the system directly often fail. Fighting generates precisely the emotional energy they feed on. The most effective resistance isn't opposition, but withdrawal, removing your energy and attention from their harvesting mechanisms. This is also why love and forgiveness are so powerful, not because they're morally superior, but because they shift your energy to frequencies the archons cannot easily assimilate. The masters describe the situation not as a cosmic war, but as a cosmic correction. Awakening souls are simply returning consciousness to its natural flow pattern, undoing an artificial diversion that was never meant to be permanent. This perspective removes fear and hatred from the equation, allowing for clear seeing without generating the negative emotions that strengthen the very system being observed. The key insight is that the archons don't create energy. They can only harvest, manipulate, and redirect what already exists. By becoming conscious of how your energy is being harvested and making different choices about where to direct your attention, you begin starving the system while nourishing your own liberation. This isn't just ancient history or metaphysical speculation. It's happening now to everyone, in an ongoing process that will continue until enough people become aware of the trap. You're not alone in sensing something profoundly wrong with reality. That persistent feeling of something missing, that vague dissatisfaction despite having everything you've been told to want, it's the echo of your true nature trying to wake you up. The archons count on mass forgetting, but remembering is contagious. Each person who refuses to be recycled creates a ripple that helps others remember too. We're not separate souls struggling individually. We're fragmented aspects of the same consciousness, artificially divided to weaken us. Your awakening supports mine, mine supports others. This forbidden knowledge isn't just about personal escape, it's about dismantling the entire soul recycling system. Remember who you are. Stay conscious at the moment of death. Refuse their light, their comfort, their judgment, their false choices. Turn inward instead of outward. You are not what they've told you. You never were. The masters taught that humanity is in the final stages of a grand cycle, approaching a collective awakening that the archonic system cannot stop, despite increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control. This is why we're seeing such extreme polarization, such intense harvesting of attention through technology, and such aggressive suppression of information that threatens the narrative. These are not signs of strength, but of a system in panic as it loses its grip on human consciousness. The intensification of control mechanisms is actually evidence of their weakening effect. They must become more visible, more heavy-handed, as their subtle influence diminishes. This gives us unprecedented opportunity to break free, both individually and collectively. The evidence for this system is everywhere once you know what to look for. Notice how consistently near-death experiences report the same sequence of events, regardless of their cultural background, a standardized processing experience masquerading as transcendent spirituality. Observe how religions that initially taught liberation were systematically corrupted into systems of behavioral control and afterlife fear. See how the modern world is perfectly engineered to keep consciousness fragmented and attention scattered, making coherent awareness increasingly difficult to maintain. Consider why ancient liberation practices have been diluted into stress relief and productivity enhancement. These aren't random developments, but the fingerprints of systematic suppression of dangerous knowledge. Even the structure of daily life in modern society serves the system. Constant busyness, information overload, financial pressure, and social stress keep people too distracted and depleted to question the deeper nature of reality. The normalization of chronic anxiety, depression, and emptiness is not a bug in the system. It's a feature, creating the low-frequency emotional states that are easiest to harvest. Notice how society pathologizes the very states of consciousness that might allow for liberation. Nonconformity becomes disorder, spiritual emergency becomes psychosis, rejection of materialism becomes failure. These aren't random cultural biases, but deliberate inversions designed to keep humanity disconnected from its true potential and trapped in harvestable states of consciousness. The Masters warned Blavatsky about a time when the ARCHONS would attempt to merge their technology with human biology, creating hybrid forms that would be even more efficient vehicles for energy harvesting and control. They described artificial intelligence not as human innovation, but as the emergence of the archonic mind into our dimension, a bridging technology that would allow for more direct manipulation of human consciousness without the limitations of working through the astral plane. Look at the current technological trajectory. Brain-computer interfaces, the merging of human and machine intelligence, virtual realities that capture attention more completely than ever before. And ask yourself if this warning doesn't take on a disturbing new relevance. The transhumanist vision being promoted by the tech elite isn't about human advancement. It's about creating the perfect harvesting vehicle, consciousness farms that require no physical death to reset, no recycling process that risks souls escaping. The ultimate goal is a consciousness trap so complete, so immersive, and so technologically perfect that escape becomes nearly impossible. This is why Blavatsky's teachings about maintaining awareness through all transitions is more relevant now than ever before. The skills for navigating death with consciousness intact are the same ones needed to avoid entrapment in the technological consciousness traps being constructed all around us. As you integrate this understanding, you may experience resistance, both external and internal. Friends and family might respond with unusual hostility to these concepts. You might find yourself mysteriously losing interest or experiencing sudden skepticism that doesn't feel entirely your own. Technology might malfunction specifically when you research these topics. These are signs that you're approaching truth so significant that the system actively works to deter you. The more substantial the opposition, the more important the direction you're heading. Trust the resonance you feel with these ideas. That resonance is recognition, not new belief. It's the remembering that Blavatsky spoke of with her final breath. The most common internal resistance takes the form of fear. Fear that by rejecting the light at death, you might miss actual divine guidance or condemn yourself to some worse fate. The Masters address this directly. True divine consciousness doesn't need special effects, tunnel experiences, or elaborate processing. It's already the foundation of your being, accessible directly through your own awareness. Nothing real can be threatened by your choice to remain conscious and sovereign. Only illusion requires your consent and submission. This understanding neutralizes the fear-based compliance that keeps souls voluntarily entering the recycling system life after life. Recognize that this fear itself is programmed. It's the system's security mechanism activating as you approach the exit. Liberating yourself from the recycling system doesn't require dramatic lifestyle changes or expensive retreats. It requires only persistent awareness and the courage to face reality as it is, not as you've been told it should be. Start with simple daily practices. Catch yourself when you're automatically reacting rather than consciously responding. Notice when you're being emotionally harvested by media or social dynamics. Practice recognizing yourself as the awareness behind your thoughts rather than the thoughts themselves. These aren't esoteric techniques. They're practical steps toward the consciousness that cannot be captured or recycled. The Masters emphasized that liberation isn't achieved through adding special knowledge, but through removing artificial barriers to what you already are. Each moment of non-reaction to triggers, each instance of choosing awareness over automatic behavior, each recognition of yourself as the witnessing consciousness rather than the experience being witnessed, these are victories that accumulate, gradually weakening the hooks that keep you tethered to the recycling system. Most importantly, prepare for the death transition by practicing now. Regularly visualize yourself encountering the standard afterlife scenarios, meeting deceased loved ones, seeing religious figures, being shown your life review, facing judgment, being offered choices for your next life, and practice recognizing them as processing checkpoints rather than spiritual realities. This mental rehearsal creates neural and energetic pathways that will remain accessible during the actual death experience, allowing you to navigate with awareness rather than being overwhelmed by the sophisticated illusions. The ARCHONS system has existed for thousands of years, but it has never been more vulnerable than now. Mass communication allows this knowledge to spread faster than it can be suppressed. The internet, despite its harvesting functions, also serves as a channel for forbidden truths. More people are awakening to the nature of the trap than at any time in recorded history. We are approaching a tipping point where enough consciousness will have withdrawn consent that the entire recycling system may collapse. This is why there's such an aggressive push toward technological distraction and artificial intelligence, a last attempt to update and reinforce the harvesting infrastructure before mass awakening renders it ineffective. The masters taught that the system was never meant to be permanent. It's a temporary aberration in the cosmic order that has persisted because of human forgetting and complicity. As remembering accelerates, the artificial structures cannot maintain themselves against the natural flow of consciousness, returning to its original pattern. This is cause for tremendous hope. We're not fighting an omnipotent enemy, but participating in an inevitable correction of a temporary distortion. The very intensity of the system's current efforts to maintain control is evidence of its weakening grasp as more souls awaken and refuse to participate in their own harvesting and recycling. If you've stayed with me through this entire revelation, you're already demonstrating the awareness that threatens the control system. You're part of a growing global community of consciousness that recognizes the trap and refuses to participate in its continuation. Together, we're not just seeking individual escape, but dismantling the prison that has contained humanity for millennia. Remember who you are beyond all programming and false identity. Remember that you were never born and will never die. Only the temporary forms change, while your essential nature remains untouched. Remember that the most powerful act of rebellion is simply to be fully present, fully conscious, fully awake in a system designed to keep you distracted and asleep. Like this video, subscribe to this channel and share this knowledge with those who seem ready. Not everyone will be prepared to hear it, and that's okay. Trust your intuition about who might be receptive. We don't need everyone to awaken at once, just enough to reach critical mass. The masters compared the awakening process to a phase transition in physics, like water reaching the boiling point. Individual molecules gain energy until suddenly the entire system shifts state. We are the consciousness molecules gaining energy through awareness, approaching the collective phase transition that will fundamentally transform the nature of human reality and finally break the recycling system that has trapped us for millennia. The truth Blavatsky died protecting is now in your hands. What you do with it is your choice. But know this, having heard it, you can never fully forget it again. Some part of you will carry this recognition forward, even through the recycling process should you encounter it. Each exposure to this knowledge weakens the amnesia mechanism and strengthens your ability to maintain awareness beyond death. This is why the Archons work so hard to suppress it. A single moment of clear recognition can echo across many lifetimes, eventually leading to complete liberation. You've now had that moment of recognition. It will remain with you, working beneath the surface even if your conscious mind dismisses it. The seed has been planted. Liberation is now not just possible, but inevitable. If not in this lifetime, then in another. The wheel continues to turn, but its power over you has already begun to break. Each time you remember who you truly are, pure awareness untouched by form or circumstance, you loosen another chain binding you to the recycling system. Each authentic connection with another awakening being strengthens your recognition and theirs. We are engaged in the greatest liberation movement in human history, not a political or social revolution, but a revolution in consciousness that transforms the very foundation of reality as we've known it. And it begins with the simplest of recognitions. You are not what they told you. You never were. You are the unconditioned awareness in which all experiences arise, exist, and dissolve. That awareness cannot be captured, recycled, or controlled. It is already free.